Welcome back to the 2025 APAICS Energy and Commerce Summit. I'm Tanya Layden, Vice President of Development and External Affairs. Our next panel is Innovations in Modern Manufacturing. Manufacturing is undergoing a dramatic transformation. From advanced robotics and AI to smart factories and sustainable production, Manufacturing 4.0 is redefining how goods are made and who makes them. I would like to give a warm welcome to CAPAC Associate Member, Representative Debbie Dingell. Congresswoman Dingell represents Michigan's 6th Congressional District and currently serves on the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, the House Committee on Natural Resources, and the Advanced Energy Storage Caucus. Please welcome Congresswoman Dingell to the summit.
Hello, I'm Congresswoman Debbie Dingell from Michigan, and I am very thankful to join the Asian Pacific American Institute for Congressional Studies of the Energy and Commerce Summit. This panel on innovations in modern manufacturing is critical. It's an issue we must focus on, and we have to get it right. Over the last several years, we've made real progress advancing policies that strengthen our manufacturing sector, foster innovation, and create jobs. But we have to ensure that the United States remains at the forefront of manufacturing and innovation on the global stage. We have a unique opportunity and responsibility to guide this transformation in a way that lifts up workers, protects our planet, and builds a stronger, more competitive America. Last Congress, the Energy and Commerce Committee worked in a bipartisan manner to strengthen supply chains. We passed the Promoting Resilient Supply Chains Act in the House, which included several provisions I helped to co-lead. And we reached bipartisan, bicameral agreement on a supply chains provision to be included in the end of the year continuing resolution, which unfortunately was removed in the last minute at the behest of Elon Musk. In other words, the CR everybody agreed to didn't pass. Strengthening our supply chains is critical for our industrial base, for economic security, and for national security. The federal government must have the tools to prevent vulnerabilities from escalating into a full-blown crisis. As we look to the future of advanced manufacturing, labor must have a seat at the table and have access to the training and tools necessary to develop the skills they need to help the companies they work for compete in the world of advanced manufacturing. And we, as the federal government, have a duty to protect American manufacturing and its workers. And as we've seen, doing so is instrumental to our national security and economic vitality. It's vital that we continue to take steps to secure our supply chains, our manufacturing capability, our domestic workforce, while also ensuring that we're investing in innovation. We are competing in a global marketplace, and I will not let anybody else out-innovate or out-compete us. So I remain committed to finding common ground with my colleagues across the aisle and working together to support and strengthen the next generation of American manufacturing jobs. It's critical. We got to work together. More importantly, we got to get the job done. We need to bring those jobs home. So thank you for your continued efforts and partnership. I look forward to continuing our work together.
Thank you for those remarks, Congresswoman. I am now excited to introduce our panel moderator, Lauri Ng. Lauri currently serves as principal at Mindset, where she provides strategic counsel and analysis on important policy issues, while playing a key role in the firm's financial services, energy, and environment verticals. Please welcome Lauri and our panelists to the summit.
Thank you so much for those remarks. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining this important conversation on the future of manufacturing 4.0, the digital transformation of manufacturing and what it means for our industries, our workers, and our communities. At its heart, Manufacturing 4.0 is about more than just adopting technologies like AI, robotics, and data analytics. It's about how these shifts affect people, especially how we build a future workforce that is skilled, prepared, and included in its transformation. This matters not just for competitiveness, but for ensuring communities like Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders communities are fully a part of this future. I'm thrilled to be joined today by three leaders helping to shape this future. David Brousell, who's the founder, vice president, and executive director of the Manufacturing Leadership Council and the digital manufacturing arm of the National Association of Manufacturing, the largest association of manufacturers in the United States. They've been at the forefront of defining and advancing the concept of Manufacturing 4.0. Natalie Wilkinson, Vice President of Production Engineering for Vehicle Manufacturing Engineering at Toyota Motor North America, who leads on some of the most innovative workforce and technology strategies in the industry today. And then we also have Sitaram, Arkalgud, Vice President of Integration, Operations, and Major Programs at Tokyo Electron Limited, a key player in the semiconductor industry and advancing manufacturing. To kick us off, I'd like to invite each of you to introduce yourselves just a bit more. Tell us about your role, your organization, and how you're engaged in this transformation. And we'll start with David, and then Natalie, then Sitaram.
Thank you, Lauri, and thanks for having me on the broadcast. Appreciate it. As you mentioned, I'm the founder of the Manufacturing Leadership Council, which I founded in around 2005 to help manufacturing companies transition to the digital model of manufacturing. In 2018, we were acquired by the National Association of Manufacturers. So now we are the digital transformation arm of the NAM, the largest association of manufacturing companies in the United States. So we help our members transition to the digital model by focusing on a set of technological, organizational, and leadership issues associated with the transition. And over the years, we have amassed a group of nearly 4,000 people now in the Manufacturing Leadership Council that is working very hard to help themselves as well as other companies transition to this new model of manufacturing so that they can be competitive in their own companies as well as raise the prospects of the U.S. manufacturing industry as a whole.
And hello, everyone. My name, as Lauri said, is Natalie Wilkinson. I'm the Vice President of the Production Engineering, Vehicle Manufacturing Engineering team at Toyota Motor North America. So I know that's a mouthful to hear that title. What it means is that I have responsibility for supervising and leading the team that executes all of the equipment installation and setup at all of our vehicle manufacturing plants within North America. There are 8 total plants across the US, Mexico, and Canada. And our engineering headquarters is located in Georgetown, Kentucky. However, we have satellite offices with our engineering teams at all of our vehicle manufacturing locations. So, our role and my team's vision and purpose is to execute the equipment that's needed as we advance our models, as we move to the electrification of our vehicles. Obviously, there's going to be new technologies implemented. We work with NAM as far as understanding the new digital solutions that are out there. And as David mentioned, the Manufacturing 4.0 that they've coined is something that, my PE team has the opportunity and the task to implement across our vehicle plants, which includes not only the installation of the equipment and all the data analytic tools, but also the training and the development of the members at those sites to maintain and sustain that. So I'm really excited about the conversation today. It's really applicable in these times as we're going through not only a digital transformation, but a manufacturing transformation at all of our vehicle sites. So excited for the conversation, and thanks for having us today.
Hi, my name is Sitaram Arkalgud. Lauri, thank you so much for the introduction. It's actually a pleasure to be on this panel, and I'm really looking forward to it. As you said, I work for Tokyo Electron Limited, or TEL. TEL is the 4th largest equipment manufacturer in the semiconductor industry, and we were established in 1963 So it's about 62 years in the business. I wasn't there when that started. Just want to make it clear. But I've been in the industry for about 35 years now, and I've seen a lot of different changes, going on all through those years. But back to TEL, TEL is based out of Japan, Tokyo Electron Limited. It's the headquarters of Tokyo. And we are actually in Albany, New York. It's an R&D site. And I run a group that focuses on integration of processes and, different designs and so on for chip manufacturing. And this is looking at technologies that could be used maybe 5 years from now, right? So it's very, very cutting edge, a lot of fun. And we leverage the Albany, New York site because this is a very, very unique capability, public and private, where the state, the federal government, provide lots of funds, but you also have companies like IBM and Tokyo Electron, Applied Materials, and so on. And this site, we've been one of the founding members, so we've been here now for 22 years. And it's still going strong. So it's a fabulous place to be. And like I said, I'm very excited to be on this panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for those great introductions. I'm super excited for our conversation today. Just appreciate you all for setting the stage. But with that, maybe we'll just dive in. I just want to start by making sure we're all on the same page about what manufacturing 4.0 really means and why it matters, especially as we think about the future of work and opportunity. So I'll turn to you, David, first. Your organization was among the first to define this space. For those less familiar, could you help ground us? And what is manufacturing 4.0 and why is it so critical for the U.S. competitiveness and innovation?
Sure. Manufacturing 4.0 is often also referred to as the fourth industrial revolution, which suggests that there were some revolutions beforehand, and that is indeed true. Manufacturing 4.0 builds on those earlier eras when manufacturing companies invested a lot of money and talent and energy and work into computer systems and communication systems and software platforms to automate and make their businesses and operations more efficient. But what happened in the third industrial revolution was largely the automation through technology of silos in most companies, functional silos. What the fourth industrial revolution, or manufacturing 4.0, seeks to do is to now bring that all together and create cross-functional systems and processes in companies so that the companies are operating as one. We do this through the generation of large volumes of data that can be interoperable across the enterprise. We do it through data engineering so that we can mine the best nuggets of information out of data to improve decision making. And increasingly, we have to do this through the adoption of industry-wide standards and ways of doing things so that the entire industry benefits from manufacturing 4.0. At MLC, we think there are three dimensions of change associated with the trend. The first is technology. You've got to have the right technologies in place, such as sensor-based networks, the right type of software systems and analytical systems. You've got to have the right foundation in place in your companies in order to benefit from that. So you've got to have modern enterprise resource planning systems, supply chain systems, product lifecycle management systems, quality systems, et cetera. And you build on that to create the next layer of capability within your company to advance efficiency, productivity, cost effectiveness, et cetera. The real benefit lies in that data. The more we can mine data, and we will increasingly do so through the use of artificial intelligence systems that can do much more than the human brain can do, to identify unmet needs among customers and to identify new business opportunities for the manufacturing companies, we will then be able to advance the industry overall. So manufacturing 4.0 is a complex set of changes. You've got to have the right organizational structure in place. And most importantly, we feel at MLC, you've got to have the right leadership mindset for manufacturing 4.0. This is not a simple change, or it's not a temporal change or a tactical change. It is a strategic change within the companies that requires cultural change, leadership behaviors and skills to take advantage of digital technologies and understand their potential, and to enable people to collaborate much more effectively as they become increasingly empowered with information in their organization. So it tends to kind of flatten the organizational structures within companies. This is a huge sea change for most companies, all companies, and not only in the manufacturing industry. Every industry is going through this digitization era, and trying to understand all these dimensions of change and how they orchestrate them together for benefit. And the link to competitiveness is that this is happening around the world. It's not just happening in the United States. It's happening in Asia. It's happening in Europe. It's happening in South America. It's happening all over the world. Manufacturing companies are trying to up their game through the use of digital technology so they can be faster, they can be more price competitive, cost effective, they can be more productive, and they can identify those new innovations through the use of data that can propel their business through the rest of the 21st century. So the stakes are very high here for the United States to improve everything it's doing in its manufacturing base to compete effectively on the global stage.
Thank you so much, David. That was really informative. I'll turn to Natalie next. Toyota has been a leader in partnerships with technical schools and high schools to build the next generation workforce. How are you preparing workers for the realities of manufacturing 4.0, and how do you tackle the perception gap about what manufacturing careers look like today?
Yeah, well, thank you for that question. And maybe to build on what David was sharing, this is a huge transformation for manufacturing. The exciting part of it, though, is it's creating new pathways versus your traditional, assembly process, conveyance process, and a maintenance, right, to manufacture. Now we are opening up all these new doorways to data analytics, data science, technicians. The exciting pieces, it's not just 4 or 5 anymore. I mean, it's just ballooning to so many different opportunities. The second piece of that is, we have to have people that go in and implement this stuff too, right? It's a new type of pre-production engineering to get these tools and systems in place. And as David mentioned, the data analytics piece is huge. What we found at Toyota was we put in these systems to get the data, as he said, in the industry 3.0, but it was siloed and we couldn't take any action with it. And we were basically smothered in data, and it really wasn't helping us move the business forward and create opportunities to grow and be more competitive. So, first we had to take a step back as we started this many years ago and say, well, what skill sets do we need to implement these tools and to provide some success on, developing an organization that can use these. And so, we did recognize a gap in skill and capability. So we took an approach to do some internal development of core, so that we could challenge our team members to develop more capabilities and skills to do it. And then we also recognized a gap in the pipeline of new talent coming in, not only for manufacturing, but for engineering, because they just felt like, manufacturing and automotive wasn't so sexy anymore. And there are these new exciting roles that they can do. And so we really spent a lot of time trying to think about these new pathways, computer science, all of these things are things that we are going to need now. And so, we've taken a real intentional look at our communities. We're invested in our communities, right? As I said earlier, we've got 8 manufacturing plants across the United States, Mexico, and Canada. And at each one of these sites, we're talking 10 to 12,000 Toyota team members, not to mention the partners that we've got there, right? So we're very invested in our communities. And so we want talent to come from them. And where are we going to get the talent? From the schools. So, our partnerships have been growing, and our creative thought about how to engage talent to get a team member pipeline, to get an engineer pipeline, to get a maintenance and skilled team member pipeline. We're tackling that in multiple ways. We started with working with our community technical colleges and setting up core curriculum that was applicable to Toyota, where we could partner with them to stand up these curriculum models. We then have since expanded, and we've gone into the high schools. We've set up what's called a 4T program, and also some driving possibilities programs that engages juniors and seniors, and even brings the last semester of your senior year, you are brought in to work in the plant so you can understand what you're signing up for, and then you can direct hire just after. Driving possibilities is allowing us to build skill and talent, not just for the Toyota pipeline, but once a student graduates from this program, they're certified as a skilled team member and can participate or join any of our community businesses that we partner with there. So, there's a lot of opportunity to engage, and we're certainly trying to take advantage of that to build a strong pipeline.
Thank you, Natalie. I have a nephew who's really into cars and really into vehicles, and it sounds like something that's right up his alley. He's currently 1. So what I'm hearing is in about 17 years, he should look out for Toyota.
Yes. Maybe sooner. Maybe by then we're even sooner. So
yeah, middle school maybe soon.
Yes,
Are there laws against that kind of a thing? I'm kidding.
We'll turn to you next, Sitaram. So your industry is at the heart of the CHIPS Act and broader conversations around supply chain resilience. What are the workforce pipeline challenges that you're seeing in semiconductors and advancing manufacturing, and what's needed to meet this demand?
So, one of the things about going after another person in the high-tech industry is I could pretty much take Natalie's, remarks and just switch the names of the companies. However, there's a little bit of a difference. About 2 decades ago, the semiconductor industry started offshoring, at least the US part of it, started offshoring the manufacturing piece of it, to foundries. And so this is when, names like Fabless, Fablight came up. A fab is a fabrication plant. These are, again, like auto manufacturing, these are big plants that need to run day and night in order to, get back the investment that you put into them. Right. So a lot of these went offshore to Taiwan, to Korea, and China, and so on. And so what's happening now is with the CHIPS Act, as you mentioned, Lauri, there is a push to get back a lot of that capability into the US. However, this trend started 20 years ago or more. And so there is a lot of emphasis on workforce development, because the concern really is, it's not just scientists or engineers. You need technicians, you need field service engineers, you need operators, right? So all of these have to sort of be trained. And so the playbook is very similar to what Natalie just said, which is, we have on this campus out here, a Tech Valley High School. So it's a magnet school, for kids from this whole capital district area. So it's Troy, Schenectady, and Albany. And so they come in from various different schools, and they're exposed to the environment out here. Within Intel itself, we have a very similar program as Toyota, where in the sophomore year of their degree, we usually get interns, about 10%, roughly give or take, of our total population here in Albany. And they go into various different areas. And, sometimes they switch. But typically by the senior year, they're working 20 hours a week out here. If they're in one of the local colleges, then they can actually just come in, they have a place to put their books, they can study, they go back, and it works out very well. And at the end of when they graduate, typically they get a job offer because, it's 2 years worth of training that you've put into this. right? So that's one, but it's not just undergrads. We also look at masters, PhD students, depending on what areas we want them to fill. It is a very big challenge. We need to build this workforce back up again. As you've seen with the CHIPS Act, there's a lot of money that the federal government is making available, especially for manufacturing. It's hundreds of millions, billions of dollars that go into this over several years. We need people who are very well versed in not just the traditional areas. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the semiconductor industry, you have design engineers, you have process engineers, you have integration engineers, product engineers, and so on. You need all of those. What's coming up now, which is a little different, is the digital side of things. We need to be able to use machine learning techniques. We need to be able to leverage AI, right? Digital twins. We need to have data scientists. Again, like Natalie was saying, we are also getting swamped in data because every one of our machines throws out a lot of information, right? What do you do with all of this? How do you collect all of them? How do you actually make sense out of all of this, right? So that's a very new area. And we're also grappling with it and trying to figure out, how do you pick the trends, especially for high volume manufacturing, right? How do you actually make sense of the data, use it so that you can get the best yield and put out the more fastest, cheapest chips that are available. Okay. Not as visual as a car, especially a sports car, but it powers a lot of cars.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity, but we have to change our workforce to kind of meet those demands. And we're starting to see the beginning of what that looks like, but we have yet to see what that looks like in the next 5-10 years from now. And kind of around the workforce considerations, I'll turn it back to you, David. You've written about how manufacturing 4.0 requires transformation, not just in technology, but in leadership and organizational culture. What's your perspective on the biggest workforce challenges manufacturers face in this transformation, especially in ensuring different communities aren't left behind?
Yeah, the overall workforce question is, I think, two tiers. One is the leadership component, and the other is the basic workforce component. And they're kind of related in some sense. I think the biggest issue in transitioning the workforce, in addition to what Sitaram was saying and Natalie was saying about bringing in these new skill sets that we need around data analytics, critical thinking, analytical thinking, we also have to bring in, from an overall corporate culture point of view, what we call a digital mindset, that you have to think digital first when you're planning a production line, or whether you're reconfiguring a line, or whether you're trying to troubleshoot something. And that's a lot of work for the leadership team to do, because a lot of companies, particularly that have leadership teams that have been in place for a long time, tend to operate more based on their experience and intuition. They haven't necessarily become data-driven in how they handle decision making in their organizations. So that's a transition for a lot of companies, developing that mindset to think digital first and to understand how to change decision making in their companies and give up some of that power. That can be difficult. But the big benefit is that if you can do that, you can drive more decision making down the line in manufacturing. It doesn't have to reside just upstairs. As people get more informed through the availability of information in their roles, more decisions can be handled down the line, which I think can potentially speed up what we're doing in our manufacturing plants and factories. So there are many layers to the workforce issue. One that has been persistent for as long as I've been in the industry, and I've been in the industry for about 27 years now, is the perception that manufacturing has in the general U.S. population. not only with high school students and college students, but with, very importantly, with their parents. They have a perception that manufacturing is dark, dangerous, and dirty. But nothing could be further from the truth in these days. And the more we can work on changing that perception and really exposing to people what modern manufacturing looks like in America and what its potential is, the more opportunity we have to solve the workforce problem, which has persisted, as I said, for many years. You know, that right now there's about 425, 50,000 open jobs in manufacturing. When I first started in manufacturing in 1998, there was about 350,000 open jobs. So it's been constant through the years. The perception problem is a key reason why it is so. And so if we can help change that perception, bring manufacturers into the high schools, let them talk about what they do in their companies, bring students into the plants and the factories, let them see what a modern manufacturing organization is doing. There's a lot of exciting roles that people can play, and they're very well paid. So people can have very good careers in manufacturing if they become aware of what's actually out there. And I think if that awareness problem that's linked to the perception problem is a key piece, if we can make progress in trying to solve it, we can change the dynamics of U.S. manufacturing from a workforce perspective and get more young people coming in. There's many avenues. Our sister organization at the NAM, which is called the Manufacturing Institute, focuses on workforce issues exclusively. They're working very hard on the STEM front. They're working with veterans, military veterans. They're working to increase the number of women in the manufacturing workforce, which has been around 29% for many, many years. Veterans make great manufacturing people. The more we can expose these different groups to what's possible, the opportunities in manufacturing, the better future we're going to have.
Thank you, David. Yeah, definitely. There seems to be a perception gap, and I think that's why conversations like these are so important, because it really helps decrease some of that perception gap. And I know, some of the efforts of Toyota and helping to evolve their work in this space helps address that perception gap as well. I'll turn it to Natalie next. For you all, as technology advances, AI, robotics, and automation, the skills required from your workforce are evolving quickly. How are you addressing this inside Toyota, and what advice would you give to other manufacturers trying to prepare for these changes?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And maybe before I move straight into that, I want to hit on something that David mentioned about the perception of the environment within manufacturing. And we're very conscious of that in our role as, delivering an environment that people want to come into. Clean, bright, quiet. Clean, bright, quiet, clean, bright, quiet, over and over. I mean, that's what we're saying, right? Not only is that important for the team member experience, but it's also very important that you're able to highlight problems. If it's a quiet environment and we have equipment that's failing or problem, you can hear it, right? So there's all kinds of different circumstances. So, clean, bright, quiet is a huge priority for us, and something that we want. We've opened our plants to have visitor tours, and we encourage the schools to bring kids from a young age to just drive through the facility and recognize that it's not what they think is the traditional manufacturing. So, I'm really, really excited that that's one of our priorities. Going back to your question about, how are we training and developing, again, a perception or the experience of the student now is much different than it has been in the past, right? When I was growing up, we had typewriters, and then we went into the old style computers, right? The young adults that are graduating these days have had a cell phone in their hand and been able to access data in a second. And so going into the factory, they expect a training or learning experience that's equivalent or better than they had in high school or college, right? And as a manufacturer, we had to really intentionally we're still getting there, right? To start to shift the way that we train and develop our members, the tools we gave them to use. It was pen and paper on a clipboard is not sufficient for this new pipeline. So perception and reality in that case was a little bit accurate. And so we really had to pull resources out to focus on the training experience using augmented reality, virtual reality, the Oculus, the youth have grown up they expect this kind of virtual environment. And so we have partnered with Microsoft and other groups to try to develop and use tools like that to train and onboard. That way we're delivering not only on the environment that they expect, but on the experience that they expect when they come in and begin to train and want to stay within manufacturing. We want to make it fun. We want to make it exciting. Although it has to be safe and we have to build in quality, but we can find tools and ways to make that great and a good experience for them. And we've started to do that in a lot of ways. And honestly, as a company, benefit has been tremendous. Using those type of tools has allowed us to onboard and train and shift talent from different areas like 6 to 7 times faster than when we've been able to do the traditional ways in the past. So not only is it a better experience for our team members, but it's a better experience for our company as well.
That's great, Natalie. I think it really puts you all at, when people see these things, a competitive advantage for hiring and kind of creating a new generation of workforce around this industry. And that leads me to my next question, Sitaram. We often hear about the intense competition for AI and tech talent across industries. How is Tokyo Electron thinking about workforce development and staying competitive and attracting the right talent, especially in such fast-moving global environment?
Yeah, Lauri, I'll take a step back, and tell you a little bit of a story of when I got into the industry. It was very hard for me to explain to my parents what exactly I did, because I'd get up in the morning or sometimes at night and go into a clean room and then come out. And I couldn't really show them anything that I did, right? It was always hidden inside a computer or a cell phone or something like that. There's a lot better understanding about the semiconductor industry now, and especially things like the CHIPS Act, helps quite a bit, because people who I don't even expect to know much about the industry actually stop me and ask me what it's all about. So that's a big benefit just overall for the industry. Of just workforce development itself, I talked about what we do, but we also reach out to the different groups. David brought out the veterans. We actually have a very active program, because you're right, for manufacturing, they just get the job done. They're very skilled in what they do, and with the right amount of training, it's perfect, for our manufacturing jobs, the field service engineering side, and so on. So that's one. We are always conscious about, trying to attract more women to the engineering and manufacturing side. So that's, again, another area. And so that fits right into this group because of the Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. So those are the kinds of groups that we really like to have from a diversity point of view. In terms of staying competitive, we have to get out there, get the message out that, Tokyo Electron, for instance, right, or the semiconductor industry is doing really cool stuff. And things like AI, and then, robotics, all of that helps quite a bit. Data mining, right? So that's all really good, because it's less of a hard sell than it used to be a few decades ago. But having said that, one of the things I tell them is, hey, where else can you work in an air-conditioned room where the air is really, really clean, because it's a clean room? Okay, so it's all filtered. And it's different from your typical manufacturing jobs. And this actually goes back to what both of my panelists were saying just now. It has changed quite a bit. It really is high-tech. And on top of that, it's also good to be part of a global company, where we can actually offer the younger generation the mobility to go to Japan, of course, but also Europe and different parts of Asia, right? It's a huge industry, and somewhere we forgot to talk about the supply chain readiness, but this is really where it helps a lot. And it works for some, maybe it doesn't work for some others, but that's also an attraction. And of course, the other thing that I use is anytime you take a picture with your cell phone, that camera chip probably came off one of our machines. And that's the area that I work in. Okay, so I'm actually passionate about it. So those are all the kinds of things, but you have to get in there and compete with everybody else for the talent. And that's how it is. Okay.
Thank you, Sitaram. Sounds like some really exciting stuff you all are working on and evolving in your companies and industries. And I just wanted to close with one question for all of you all. Before we close this session today, I'd love for each of you to share briefly what gives you optimism for the future of manufacturing and workforce development. What should our communities be excited most about? I'll start maybe with David, and then Natalie, and then Sitaram.
Sure. I'm terribly optimistic about the future of manufacturing. I may be a little biased, but I really believe that there's a very, very bright future ahead for the industry, not only because of the new technologies, but because there's I think a renewed focus on the importance of manufacturing to our economy and our society. We've long believed here, in fact, our vision statement at MLC is that manufacturing is the fundamental driver of economic and social prosperity, and that its growth will lead to a better future for everyone, all peoples. We deeply believe that. And this renewed focus on the importance of manufacturing, I think, will help drive attention to it, awareness of it. And the technologies that we're going to be using in manufacturing plants and factories in the years ahead are almost in the science fiction realm today. We're scratching the surface very early on with AI. It's going to develop even further. We're going to get into metaverse technologies, which is a basket of technologies to not only help simulate things, but enable individuals working in plants and factories to visualize problems on the floor, remotely and from different locations, et cetera. And when quantum computing comes in, this next generation of computing capabilities, we're going to have the ability to deal with what Sitaram was talking about, is this enormously growing volumes of data that manufacturing plants and factories are generating. Our research at MLC indicates, or the manufacturers themselves are telling us, that they expect their data volumes to grow by up to 400% in the next 2 to 3 years. Can you imagine that? So we're going to need increasingly more powerful computer systems like quantum systems and AI systems to process that data so that we can use it effectively. The future is just going to be fantastic for those people who want to come in and actually make things. We're the industry, we're the people who make things, and we're the only industry that does this. So it's very exciting, it's very rewarding, it's very meaningful. If you get a chance to see it, I know you'll be hooked by it. So I'm very excited. I think we're only, we may be in the fourth industrial revolution for a period of years now, but I think we've only scratched the surface. We have a lot more headroom to grow in, and with the right people and the passion and the ability to learn from what we're doing, I think the future is almost unlimited.
Natalie?
Yeah, I will build off of that. I'm ecstatic about the future. There is so much opportunity. There are so many things changing. We make stuff. There's nothing, no prouder moment than when I'm driving down the road and I, pass a Sienna or Highlander and I had a hand in that, right? And it just it's very gratifying. I know Sitaram said earlier with C's cell phone, I probably made the chip in that phone, right? It's just like such rewarding on such a high level. So we want to really encourage that and try to just share the excitement around this transformation, not only digital transformation, but an entire industry transformation on how we're going to build. I'm also really excited about the new pathways that we're going to have for career development and career growth. At Toyota specifically, a lot of people have read about TPS or the Toyota way. One of our core values is continuous improvement. And I feel like our culture is really set up for success as we see all this change. We're ready to go. We're ready to improve. We encourage that, in every team member is instilled in that culture. It permeates throughout the organization. And I think we're going to be ready. And I'm excited about the tools and the future of our organization and just manufacturing in general. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Natalie. We'll turn to Sitaram next.
Thanks, Lauri. I'm also very, very excited by what I see. I think back to when I went into engineering and there were 5 or 6 disciplines that you could have in engineering. Right. And you just did that. These were very traditional. I look at it now and there are so many different, sub engineering areas. I don't know how else to put it. And then there are multidisciplinary areas also. And it just keeps growing. And if you look at all of that and the opportunities that it brings up, it's amazing. Just looking at my own industry, I can't imagine a world without semiconductors. And with that growth comes all these different opportunities. And I'm going to look back in 5 years and wonder how we ended up in a good way where we are. I just don't know exactly how that will go. Okay. But it's all very bright. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you all have got me super excited about this next revolution in the industry. But first and foremost, I just want to thank all of our panelists for joining us today. It's been such a great conversation. This conversation not only highlights how the future of manufacturing is about more than innovation, but that it's about people, opportunity, and inclusion. I hope we all leave here today feeling a little bit more inspired and connected for what's ahead.